live. We are officially, it says checking connection. We are live, and last but not least, record. Well, blessings, folks. This is our Thursday Cosmic Conversations with me, Stacy Harder, and my mother, the amazing Dr. Heather Harder. This is a beautiful time. If you're new, we do this again every Thursday, and you're welcome to join us on Zoom. The Zoom number, if you'd like to join, is 428-733-218. And again, we meet every Thursday, same time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get on the mailing list, please email heather@heatherharder.com, and you can get on the email list. And this is a free place that we come to have these amazing conversations. And today's topic is fairies and divas and other little small magical creature beings. So welcome. And I want you to know you're never alone. If you have questions, this is also a great place to come and ask your questions. And we have our little soul family that meets around the world when we go live on Instagram as well as YouTube. And feel free to go to my YouTube channel. It's Stacy Harder, just like my name as you see it on Instagram, and subscribe and like, and we're there. We're live. All right. Bless. Heather, I would like you.
Thank you. And while if you want to go and watch some of the replays from other Thursday nights, feel free to do so on Stacy's YouTube channel. And always like, subscribe, and share. It helps Stacy a great deal, and we think you'll find the information interesting. We also meet on on Sunday night, where we have spiritual meeting, political, for always intriguing conversations as well. So you may like that as well. Again, right at this point in time, we meet in Zoom. If you're in the Northwest Indiana area, we have just scheduled our first face-to-face after all this COVID fiasco, and that will start on the 18th of April. So Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central. If you're in the area, stop in and visit. Then you can contact me for more information. With that said, if you're new to our gatherings, there's always 3 parts to our meeting. First part is asking for protection, guidance, and truth. We are being bombarded with misinformation. It's really important that you ask to know truth, and you also ask with courage to act on that truth, because what we're getting is pretty extraordinary, and it's important that you listen to that inner voice. In my lovely little home, I've been clearing out lots of old boxes, and I found saying that I have had, gosh, for at least 30 years. I don't
hold it down. There we go.
Okay, there we go. I don't know if you can read it, but it's, I trust my higher self. I listen with love to my inner voice and release all that is unlike love. And that inner voice is the only true source of truth. It's the only thing that we can really acknowledge, that it acknowledges truth in our lives. So truth, and then protection and guidance. What you ask for, you get. It's universal law. So for goodness sakes, ask for it. That's part 1. Part 2 then is we actually play in the light. We are here as light workers. It's our job to work that light. And so we do different exercises, different experiences each week in order to share that light and love. We are incredibly powerful beings. It is who we are. We don't need to practice the skills. We don't need to get certified. We don't need to take a class. It is our nature to be these incredibly powerful forces of light. And so what we do is use it. And we invite you to join us in this. Again, just having the intention of doing it is all it takes. That is where your power is. So if you will, right now, imagine going to your center. It is a place of imagination. Imagination is the most powerful thing you possess. In this place, in this imagination, I like my center to look like a beach because I'm real fond of beaches. But yours can look like anything you want, or nothing if you prefer. And then allow yourself Someone is making noise, so I'm going to mute everybody, Stacy, until we. Okay, thank you. Until we get done. All right, so if we will go to center and just allow yourself to step into this incredible pillar of light. We are here to anchor heaven to earth. We do that through the light. Light, love, God all carry the same vibration. It is the highest force in all the universe, and it's yours for the asking. So allow this light to pour into you and through you from the heavens above into the earth below. You are the connector, the divine connector between heaven and earth. And if you will, just imagine turning that light up from within you so that you connect to all other beings on this planet who are of like mind. And together you all turn your light up like a dimmer switch. We just have to touch the little knob and we grow brighter and brighter. And then imagine, if you will, laying on Mother Earth on your belly. Just imagine heart to heart with Earth and sending this light and love into the earth. So all of the earth, everything in, on, and around her is filled with this light and love. You are divine. And you are blessing the earth with your intentions. And all those beings in, on, and around this planet, all the cells, all the molecules, all the creatures, every particle of every essence just gets filled with your light and love. And then send this light and love out into the atmosphere. The atmosphere is to this earth as our skin is to our body. It's a very important protective layering. And we want to just love it. Imagine seeing this love just spread out around the planet. And then send love and light out into the weather patterns. The weather patterns are how Earth finds her balance. And our job is just to love them. And then, if you will, imagine this wonderful, glistening, foggish kind of essence that surrounds all beings on this planet. That is the mass consciousness. It's invisible, and yet it's real. It's invisible, and yet it has a very strong influence on this planet and its inhabitants. And we want to just send love into it. Just see love as that magic ingredient that connects all beings, all things. And since the media has a lot of information coming out about our little DNA gene 8, which governs love and our spiritual consciousness, we ask that the heavens above join us in sending all of the gene 8, the DNA gene 8, love. So we empower that love, that compassion, that oneness on the planet. And then we send love and light to all those who are on the planet who are in fear. Media does a lot of feeding fear. Just going to fill it with love. So instead of fear, it's like ice cream. We're just going to love that energy. And then there are those on the planet who are here to deceive, who are here for their own agenda, who are here for mind control or personal greed or a myriad of other reasons that they're trying to undermine the success of the planet, the transition of the planet, the healing of the planet. And our job is just to love them. Whether they're being deceived or tricked, or they do it willingly. We just love them. Light workers are here to love. Doesn't matter who or what. Everyone deserves to be loved. Every creature on this planet deserves to be loved. Those who are least lovable are often the ones that need it the most, so we're going to double up our love for them. Every elected leader, every appointed leader, every self-chosen leader, especially political, we're just going to love them. Just imagine surrounding them with love and light. And we willingly allow the universe to work through us to enhance this love on the planet. To all the doctors, the nurses, the first responders, the scientists who are creating new things on behalf of humanity, whether it's for their improvement or not, we want to love them. Send lots and lots of love into their heart, into their world, into their laboratories, into their needles, into their consciousness. You want to just love them. And especially in the US, we have lots of leaders who seem to be working on an agenda that's other than good for the US, good for the people of this country. We're just going to love them. And then, of course, the leaders who are working for this country, working for the betterment of humanity, working to uphold the sacred document that we know as the Constitution. We're going to love them too. The social influences, the high-tech industries, the media, all those who have the power to influence, to make a difference. We want to love them. And we ask that the divine oneness do all it can do on behalf of humanity and its freedom, its sovereignty, its sacred right to determine its own destiny. Let justice prevail. Let karma do its magic to bring about a fair and balanced world. Meanwhile, our job is just to love. And we want to send lots and lots of love to all the Chinese, some who are living in restrictions and lack and limitations, and others who are living in opulence. Those who control and those who are controlled. They are living examples, living lessons for us to grow from. And we love them. And let the lessons they teach us become clear in their own consciousness. And then, of course, let us open our hearts and send love to all those in our world, all those who are our teachers, who are friends and family, all those who want or need this love. We give permission to the angels to use this love in any way that serves this planet and its people. This planet and all who serve this planet. We love them and are deeply grateful for their service. And then we open our hearts to receive that love. Universal law says that whatever you send out, you must receive. So we open our hearts to receive that love, to allow that love to come back to us and permeate every cell of our body. To restore the DNA of our consciousness back to its perfect condition. As we breathe, anywhere on this planet, we breathe in love. And we exhale anything that is of a lower vibration, that is not serving us and our world. In all things, we are grateful. We're grateful for those who are in service to this planet. We are grateful to those who serve each of us. We're grateful for this beautiful planet. We're grateful for the divine wisdom that put all this in motion. We're grateful to have the honor of serving this planet and our Creator Source. And we're grateful to have this opportunity to come together to share our love unconditionally. In all things, we are grateful. So be it, and it is so. And when you're ready, just come back to the here and now, bringing this energy, this awareness, this connection with you. Bringing that pillar of light into your everyday existence. Just being at one with all things. So be it. Okay, we're back. And our third section of our evening, our conversation, is the conversation. And we have had a request tonight that we talk about at least Jennifer's favorite things, which are the little people. She's been asking a long time about the little people and the fairies and what I know about them. And I said, I really don't know anything. Well, then I watched I think it's on Prime, documentary about the little people, the fairies. It was very good. I highly suggest that you watch it. But anyway, they were talking about the elementals and the various different cultures with the comics. Oh, that's divas. I know divas. You didn't call them divas, you call them fairies. And so what I have now come to recognize is that all of these points of consciousness, I never saw them as individual beings. They were like short, like we think of fairies with little wings. I just saw them as points of consciousness that looked after the plants, looked after the trees, looked after that element of life. Angels watch out after humans, and the divas, which is what the Native Americans called them, watched out after the plant world. And so as I began to play, then I recognized, oh, I've got lots of stuff about them. So I talked to Jennifer, and she's agreed to act as questioner. Hello, Alicia. Welcome, welcome. But I want to first tell you about my story about how I got connected with them, because I really didn't know a lot about them at one point in my life when I was living in this house that was a turn of the century house that was on Main Street. And the owners who originally built the house were owned a nursery. So in this yard, if you can imagine, we had every kind of tree, every kind of shrub, every kind of green thing that you can imagine. And they were beautiful and huge and old. And suddenly they started dying. I had this mega pine tree just fall down across the road. And then I had, one tree after another just fall down dead. I had the local people from the county come out and check this. Do I have a disease? Is there something in the yard? I mean, I explored it from every level. What's going on? Why am I all my plants dying? Because these were huge, huge, huge trees. You just couldn't replace them easily. And nobody could find anything. And so I thought, okay. And at that time, I was just beginning to get into my spiritual journey. And so it's like, okay, if there's no physical reason, then what's the spiritual reason that could happen? So as I went to check the spiritual reasons, they told me my divas left. And I thought, well, who the hell are divas and why would they leave me? I want my divas back. And they said that as I was beginning to play spiritually, that there had been so many spiritual beings come in to watch that they had been just trampled. And they said, we're out of here. And I thought, well, no, you can't leave me and kill all my plants. I gotta get, and I mean, the grass dried. Couldn't believe it. It looked like a desert. It was just very strange. And so I said, well, how do I get my divas back? And they said, well, talk to them, ask them if you have them back. It's like, okay. So as I studied and researched divas and what they like and whatnot, I found out that divas, the Native Americans often would give offering. The first bite of food went to the earth, went to the divas, the tobacco, crystals, beans, rice. They like little things that acknowledge their presence. And so I thought, well, hell, if they just, instead of just giving an invitation, let's have a party. So I had a garden party. And I probably had a dozen friends come over, and we had, it was like a foo-foo. It was fun. I wore the big garden hats, and we ate in the yard, and everybody threw food in the yard for the divas, and they had to bring a present for the divas and put it somewhere in the yard. And so it was literally just for fun. And we had an official welcome home divas, and an invitation for the divas to come back. And I mean, it was silly by every, it was not a serious, somber, sacred anything. It was just fun and silly. But honest to goodness, you could tell a difference in the yard immediately. Things turned green and then things started growing again. And again, we lived on Main Street. It's the house the kids grew up in. 30 years we lived in this house. And as people would walk down the house, they go, oh, your yard feels nice. And I'm thinking, yeah, if you only knew my divas came home. But you could feel a palpable difference. And so from that moment on, it was like we left a patch in the yard where we didn't mow or didn't tend it. It was just a wild, native, natural path, because apparently divas like that. And then, when the painters came, to paint the house, I said, yeah, don't disturb this area because that's the divas place. And I didn't think them as human beings. I thought them as points of consciousness, but I knew how real they were because I could see the difference in the yard. I mean, it was It was amazing how different the yard felt and looked. And so that was sort of my introduction to the divas. Well, to say that I've been the point of humor for my family is an understatement. My one brother is very much into ecology, and he was the park superintendent of the Lake County Fairgrounds, which in our area is like the county fairgrounds, a big park. And so they had just planted like 100 or 400 trees, some huge number. And he's making fun of me with the divas. I said, okay, you can make fun all you want. I said, but pick four, of all these trees, just pick four. And so he did, and I said, okay, I'm gonna talk to the divas of these four. I'm gonna give them presents, and then let's just see how they grow. And so um, I did that. I gave them little tobacco. I still have tobacco and little crystals, and it said, now we got to show Johnny how real you are. So you've got to grow really well. And these trees shot up and were twice as big as all of the other trees. After that happened, and that happened in a very short while, I don't remember timelines now, but in a matter of months, in my opinion, he never mentioned it again. Nobody ever mentioned him again, but I knew that he knew that there was reality in there. I'd also read and heard about Finhorn and all of the fairies and all the elementals, which is what they called them, the elementals, that they worked with in Finhorn. And I thought, well, let's go see what they're about. So I literally went to Scotland and scheduled a trip to go up to Findhorn to see the gardens. And they had supposedly had all these extravagant, huge anything, and it was the most disappointing experience I've ever had. It was nothing special. And so as I talked to that, they said, well, the people who actually started it and were really respectful of the elementals left. And the people who were there now didn't. So everything had just sort of gone back to average. So it's a relationship that you have with these points of consciousness, and based on the culture, they give them different names, and they give them different forms, because remember, they're just points of consciousness. On Halloween, you may have dressed up like a witch or a pirate or a ballet dancer or whatever. You put on this costume to be something. And so elementals or divas or fairies sort of do the same thing. What people want to see in them, whether it's leprechauns or whatever, they put on that costume to appease their audience, to make them feel comfortable. But for me, they're all these same points of consciousness that are part of the world in which we live. They're operating at a different vibratory level, therefore we don't see them and interact with them. But we're still very connected to them because we're connected to all things. We're not just connected to people, we're connected to all things. And the more we can honor and recognize this sacred connection, the more we can build on it. So that's my experience with divas. And now I can't wait to hear Jennifer's questions. So Jennifer is our interviewer tonight. She's our facilitator. So
can I ask you a question before we get into questions?
Yes, we can.
And so because I do multiple things, sometimes I'm a little distracted. But my question is, so a diva, does that include fairies, or is a diva separate?
I would say they're just different names for the same thing. Like we have the word female, we have the word girl, we have the word woman. They're all exactly the same thing. It's just the different terms. So in some cultures, they're called fairies, and some leprechauns, and some elementals. The Native Americans call them divas, and that was what I was exposed to. So that was the name I called them. But they're all, in essence, in my opinion, the same thing. And I'll stay with that until I'm told differently.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Because I was curious. I'm like, wait, I should just ask before we start the conversation.
Yeah. Yes, they're all, and I think, and I did see them as small as well. I don't see them as, okay, in my construct, which could be not accurate, but it works for me. Angels take care of the people and cities. We have citywide angels, we have countrywide angels, we have angels that are just watching out at this country. If you read the Urantia book, they have hierarchies of angels. To me, the first step in that angelic energy is the elementals, the divas, the fairies. They're the ones that are closest to the earth and the earth experience, the earth energies, and they're also dealing with the simplest form, life of form. There can be an elemental or a diva just for one leaf, just for one flower. So based on that experience, they learn and grow, and then grow on to become much more, because taking being an angel for a human being, regardless of the kind of complexity of your life, is not an easy task. You have a lot of responsibility, and so somewhere you have to be trained into that. And I see the elementals, angels, divas, fairies, etc., as being the first training component of becoming a full-blown angel. So they're just taking care of the plants, which are much more conscious than we give them credit for.
Oh, the plants? Yeah, they're very much. Okay. Do you
All
think
right.
we drop into plants before we drop into humans?
Do we or could we?
I guess both. Like, is it part of that?
I think anything is possible. I don't think many people do, um, because of the nature of plants, but they certainly have consciousness, and you can be. It used to be, as if you read my book, Then You Were Called, You Were Chosen, you recognize that we didn't used to be locked into a body, that we had a consciousness, but we could project our consciousness into any plant or into a rock. We could experience what it's like being a horse without being locked into that shape. And so at that time, a lot of people moved into feeling the plants. And it's what empaths are really doing now. Empaths are learning how to feel the consciousness of all things. So, and they're taking it in. They just haven't learned to work the controls yet. So they're getting overwhelmed with it. But it's just a natural state. Okay. Any other questions from online before we go to Jennifer? Because she looks like she's chomping at the bits.
Yeah, I'd say let's go to Jen.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it, Jennifer.
Okay. Let's see. So my first question would be,
all right, before we do that, let me ask you a question. How did you get interested in the fairies and elementals and things?
the first I ever heard of them when I was younger, as soon as I heard about them, I took a liking to them. And then the same thing with the Little Mermaid. It used to come with a cassette and a book, and I would just sit there and listen to it over and over and over again. And then as I got older, learning about crystals and still the fairies and herbs and the fair, everything always goes back to fairies. They're all connected. And so that's how I can say
Okay.
interest.
Thank you. Okay, now your questions.
Yes. So how would they like us to call them in, and how can we begin to work together?
Well, it's hard to speak for anyone else, especially the divas. So let me just take a moment and ask them. All right. Oh, well, just as I couldn't speak for Stacy, even though she's my daughter and we're very connected, I couldn't speak for her. I can't begin to speak for the divas or fairies, and we'll just call them elementals at this point on. The elementals, because they have their own consciousness. And what I'm told is they know your every thought. They don't have to be spoken to. They don't have to be addressed. They can feel your reverence. They can feel your gratitude. They can feel your connection. So make up a name for them, just like we make up names for our children and then call them that. It wasn't that was their name until we assigned it to them. So you can create your own name, but recognize there's thousands of them in your yard. There's thousands of them in every place where there's greenery. Your plants in your house have them. Every everything has that energy, and so just begin to honor them, recognize them, you know, ask them what they want you to do, because they'll talk to you like the angels do, in a very, very much an intuitive connection. So they'll talk to you, they'll answer you, and you'll also see your plants do much better too. So I find tobacco and little crystals are wonderful gifts for them. But really, anything. They, they like anything, because what it's saying is your job is significant, and not a lot of people give them significance.
Yeah, that actually answered quite a few questions.
Okay.
So the question, how can we best serve them? Is it better for us than to just ask when we're in a meditative state, or?
Okay. The word serve has many connotations. And what I'm being told very vocally is that you're not here to serve them. They're not here to serve you. You're both just interested in the well-being of the plants. And so to work with them cooperatively is much more meaningful. Now, if you've got a favorite tree, then together work with the diva to make that tree stronger and healthier and happier. But you're not serving the divas, and they're not caring about you, if that makes sense. If you're planting a garden, recognize the role they play. And I'm getting chills. Recognize the role they play in making your garden grow, and honor that role. They couldn't do it without you. You can't do it without them. So by working together, everybody gets better. And that's sort of what they would like. Just acknowledgement that they're doing their job and that you're helping them. Different trees, different plants, different things have different vibrations and different purposes. I'm told black walnut is absolutely the power of strength. It is here to be strong and anchor energy into the planet. So if you have a black walnut tree around you, many people will cut them down because they don't like those messy black walnuts. But instead go out and ask the tree if you can take some of its leaves and then compress them, and they just have strength. Again, another tree that's often considered a pest tree is the mulberry. Mulberries, I'm told, have the vibration of love. It's why they so freely replicate themselves. The birds share them everywhere because they have that energy. So go out and honor the mulberry and eat a few. Might want to wash them first. And so it's about honoring the plants and their roles and acknowledging that, and not, demeaning or diminishing or feeling you've got to do something for them. They don't need you to do their job. They just, like all of us, like to be appreciated for the job we do.
Nice.
And there's like a chorus now and I'm feeling it in my back of my neck, who are now speaking for the divas. So we have an official chorus here.
Well, that's one of my questions. Do they have like a song or some words to a song that they'd like us to sing, to be playful together?
Playful is a big thing. I think, when I was being playful, it was because I thought the whole thing was silly and I didn't want I didn't know how to make it sacred because it was just silly, the welcome home divas. But literally, I recognized how powerful it was. But I think the silliness was what gave it power, because we take everything so serious and somber, where we all have to just lighten up. Um, no, they said that there's nothing specific. They know when you're dressing them. They know, they can feel when you're singing to them. So I think any happy, cheerful, upbeat song would make them happy. Um, and I would, again, play with it. You don't have to take it serious. Play with it. If you have a yard, make a little diva area or fairy area, whatever you want to call it. I love that guy who made the fairy houses in that documentary. In fact, I looked him up online to see if he's still offering classes, and unfortunately he's not. But making the fairy houses, and I'm gonna see if I can follow his pattern and make one. But just whatever, have fun, welcome them, acknowledge them, and they appreciate that.
Great. Great. How about, will they show themselves to us?
They will show you something, but they're only points of consciousness. In order to show you, they have to put on a costume like Halloween, so they can put on any kind of costume that you want, but they're just points of consciousness. Like we see the little orbs, and we call those basically points of consciousness. So if you can think of that light, that just being a point of consciousness, that is their, they don't even have that as a form, but that is their truest nature on earth. So they don't have anything to show you, but if you want them to show you up as something, then you say, will you show yourself, and, give them a hint of what you want to see, because they can be in any kind of form. But a lot of times I'm showing, like if you're looking at the water, because in all the elements, there are these energies. It's not just plants. It's not just the earth. It's not just humans, but there are water things. And I mean, so we forget that we're just one of such a huge, vast number of beings on this planet. But oftentimes, if you're looking at the water, you'll see this almost unworldly little glistening of light on top of the water. And it's not like the sun is shining on it. It's just like the water becomes effervescent with light. That's them. And so tell them what you want. And if you have a good enough relationship, they may show themselves to you. But they don't have a form. It's not like they are in this little fairy form, or they're in this little leprechaun form, or this little gnome form. Those are all just creations based on that culture. Because you've noticed that one culture may say they're gnomes and they look like little gnarled trees, and other times someone else will say, oh, they look like this and this and this. They're just costumes they put on to make other people happy. And just like we would get excited to go, oh, I just saw a fairy. They like people doing that. So they show up just to go, surprise. So again, build a relationship.
Well, and
give them.
can I ask a question on that too? Because I think that there are certain people who can see them and talk to them, just like people see angels or dead people. Like some people see, some people hear, some people feel. Like, so wouldn't that be also part of it? Is that
that's true, and it's based on your vibratory nature. So the higher your vibration, the more easily you'll be able to see them. It's why we're seeing a lot more ghosts and stuff now, because they operate at a different vibratory level than our 3D bodies. So yes, that's true. And so it's not just that some people have the ability to see it, but some people have high enough vibration to see it. And we all can get to that point if we're so choose. And we also have to be open to seeing it. If we don't believe they exist, then you're not going to see it. And yet if we honor their presence, we're more likely to see it. Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Ask Jennifer. Jennifer's came.
Go ahead.
Well, like how we are higher dimensional beings that drop into the physical form of the human experience. Is that what a fairy is too? Is like a higher dimensional dropping in for the fairy experience?
I don't see it as dropping in.
Okay.
I see it as cloaked, again, using that Halloween costume. You know, we don't stop being that higher dimensional being when we cloak ourselves in this costume, this outfit. We just simply present something different to the world as we remember our core essence. And that's what we've been doing on these calls for years now. We're going back and remembering our true self, which is much more powerful, that we had to sort of hide when we put the cloak on until we recognize that we can change the cloak. We can take the cloak off at will. And whereas, and again, I'll use the term elementals, the elementals didn't put a cloak on. They're just in this world at their own vibratory level. So that's how I see it. And again, I am not the expert on these things. I just have experiences and connections. And everyone can have that same connection. But they're very happy to have this as a conversation, I can tell you. And I do recommend that documentary on Prime.
What's the documentary again? What's the name of the documentary?
I'm letting Jennifer tell you because I forgot it already.
Oh, okay.
It was on Amazon Prime, and it was Fairy. It should come up under Fairy.
Okay, so just come up under fairy. Perfect. Thank you.
I took a picture of the screen to send her. So it was called Gateway to Fairies, Discover a Hidden Realm of Mystery, Magic, and Wonder. Gateways to Fairies, Discover a Hidden Realm of Mystery, Magic, and Wonder on Prime. Okay.
All right, so here's some of my favorite questions now.
Okay.
Can humans have fairy blood in them or in their bloodline?
Can humans?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Fairies don't have blood. So when you're talking about traditional bloodlines or DNA, no, it's not possible because they're a point of consciousness. They don't have blood. When we have a human body, it has blood and it has a DNA, and we pull it from our physical ancestors, but it doesn't necessarily represent who we are. It's just the physical costume that we put on has the DNA and all that kind of stuff. Can humans come from divas and elementals and stuff? And that's yes, because any point of consciousness who is capable, ready, and receives permission from those who keep track of these things can enter into the physical realm and put on a costume. Mm-hmm. And so anyone who has the intention, and right now we have a lot of really high spiritual masters from every realm who are living in the physical plane in order to make a difference. This is probably the single most important time, maybe not the single, maybe 2 or 3 times on Earth, but at least it's one of a handful of very important times on the planet. So we have more spiritual masters on this planet right now in costume, looking like humans, in order to make difference. And elementals can be in that, but usually elementals have already worked up to, angelic realm in order to have sort of more ability to handle complexity. An elemental is a pretty simple one, and I'm going to say one-dimensional. They don't usually handle a lot of complications. They're working with a tree or they're working with a leaf. Now, to them, that's complicated. But when we think about, someone who may be overseeing a city, it's not as complicated as that. So usually an elemental has worked its way up in the angelic hierarchy. But yes, they can come back. They can come because they're very committed. Let's say an elemental is living in your yard and is watching, and they don't have death and rebirth and all that stuff, but an elemental is living in your yard, taking care of your favorite azalea and gets to know you and how you take care of your azalea. And they really, really love how you nurture and care for this azalea. And they're really connected to you because you're connected to their azalea. And as they watch your family and get to know your family, they're really connecting with your family. And they say, I want to try that. I want to help from the plants from another realm. And so they can go and receive really permission, because Earth is not an ordinary planet. It's a very complex planet. It is a very advanced planet where you experience everything in your consciousness, every thought you think. And so it's not something that people go first. It's a very advanced place. So they would have to get permission and show their readiness and their willingness to enter into physical. But it really is a lot of the angels and all those from the angel hierarchy who come into physical have a hard time with physical because their energy is much softer, much gentler, much more receptive, much more heart open. And Earth is a hard place. They have a hard time with the cruelty of Earth. It's very hard if you come from this place where you love everything to see people being cruel to each other, hurting each other. And so they can, but not a lot of them do because of that. They would rather help from the other side.
Yes.
So, but if you're feeling connected to them, if you're feeling drawn to them, then probably you have.
Yeah. So so you gave us some of the traits. Would there be more traits to look for?
And what? Traits or what?
If you were a fae in the past, a fairy, and you were living in this lifetime.
Well, I'd say, first of all, what difference does it make? You're here in costume, live it to the fullest. That you chose to give up that, and I'm saying you collectively, not you specifically, you chose to give up that elemental life in order to live in costume. And it's the mind that wants to know. It's the mind that wants to take it apart. Better to spend that energy just being fully human and working to make the place a more loving, kinder place than worrying about tracing your non-existent DNA back to the elementals. Does that make sense? So recognize that's the mind that wants to know, and the mind is the trickster. The mind is not going to help you. If you're feeling drawn to the divas, then if you don't have a yard, your house plants, you don't have a house plants, get the park. You can connect with them anywhere, and that's really what happened with Finhorn. You might want to read about Eileen Caddy and all the Finhorn people, because that's what they did. They connected to the elementals. But those people who started that did not continue that because Finhorn was not that spiritual significant place when I visited, and that was probably early 90s that I was there. So you can begin helping kids learn to recognize and work with the divas or the angels or whatever. I like the divas because there's a lot of Native American traditions that tie to that, which sort of helps. But it doesn't matter what you call them. You just begin to reach out and let them tell you.
Mm.
And
And
and first they may show you in synchronicities just to see how you react to it, and then go from there.
yes. And the connection with the crystals, are they just they're keepers of the crystals, or?
Okay, again, I'm going to share my opinion unless I get told something different. I think they just like the shiny stuff. I mean, I don't think there are there are the crystals themselves are alive and have energy and have consciousness. And when you can connect with the crystals, you can learn a lot from them. And there are those that are record keepers and stuff. Some of the crystals have their, we could do a whole different thing on crystals. But for um, the elementals, I think they just like shiny things. So pretty beads. I just happen to have, I take groups down to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and do crystal digs. So I have a lot of crystals. And so I just like those, but I don't think it's the crystals, the divas can use the energy of crystals in their work, but I don't think it's like they have to have them or whatever. I think they just like them, anything pretty beads or, you know,
Mm.
and I don't know the significance of tobacco, but tobacco is one of the very important things. But, you know, a lot of traditions put the first bite of food into the earth as they're giving back. So,
Yeah. And then I have, do they leave us signs to let us know that they've been in a place or been around us?
when you walk down the sidewalk, you traditionally don't leave a trail behind you. You just walk down the sidewalk. You may stop and sign something. You may do something to let others know I was here, like the graffiti on the wall. I was here. They found graffiti that's hundreds of years old inside the pyramid. So people want to leave something that says I was here. But by and large, your path on this planet is not tracked. And that's very much the same as the elementals. They're always around, they're always doing what they're doing, but they don't leave any evidence. What's the point? If humans aren't connected and they don't really give a shit, why bother? And so if you're out there making a real, you know, making a relationship and wanting and are interacting with them, and you ask them to leave a sign so that you can tell they were there, or you leave a present and the present disappears, they'll be happy to do that. They're thrilled to be recognized. You know, most of the time they're not recognized. In fact, I early in my junket of spirituality, I would tell people all the time, just ask the angels. They want to help you. Just ask the angels for help. And they literally sent me a thank you note that said that I'd put a lot of angels to work because, and they were thrilled because the worst thing that can happen to angels is to be there and not be able to help because they can't help unless they're asked. And so, in the same thing with the divas, they're there doing their work, but when you ask, when you interact with them, you can empower them to do their work even more. You get a sick plant, give presents to the divas and ask them to help make the plant healthy and strong, or tell you what you need to do. So there's a lot of ways of cooperating with the divas for your plant's benefit, or your woods or your yard or whatever, because there's different ones. There'll be divas that are just after a leaf, a diva that's after a plant, divas that are after a tree, there are divas that are after your yard. So there's got oversouls and different things. So connect with all of them. Yes, Stacy.
We have some questions around the tobacco.
Okay.
So why tobacco? Is it confused like cigarettes? Oh my gosh, I need clarification.
Okay, first of all, I have no idea why tobacco. I will ask that in a minute, see if I get a different answer. But when I was learning about the divas, it was through the Native American traditions. And the Native American traditions considered tobacco sacred. When they smoked, they considered that the pipe smoke was taking their prayers to heaven. It's why they had the sacred prayer pipe and stuff. So in the Native American tradition, this tobacco was sacred, and that was the gift you gave to the earth and to the divas. But I don't know beyond that. I'll ask in a minute. Yes, when you find cigarette butts on the ground, the most wonderful thing you can do is uncurl the tobacco and cigarette butt and give the tobacco to the divas of wherever you are, and then throw the rest of the trash. And so, yes, that tobacco counts, and it's just as sacred. I went to the store and bought. You can buy loose tobacco. Smells wonderful. I've never been a smoker, but it smells really wonderful, and it feels very different. And that was the tobacco I used, and I still have pouches of it. So now, hold on a second. Let me see if there's any answer that's different than for tobacco. Any other questions about tobacco before I tune in?
I'd say, yeah, tune into the thing and then we'll go with the rest.
Okay. And while I'm getting ready to tune in, if you have topics, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. If it hadn't been Jennifer bringing up this issue, we wouldn't be discussing it now. So, okay, now we'll do tobacco. Ooh, this almost makes me cry. It said that tobacco, the plant tobacco, is very sacred. It is a very nurturing plant for the earth. But when the Native Americans recognized that and used it as a sacred substance, when the Europeans came and used tobacco for recreational self-indulgence, they literally killed the sacredness of that substance, which is why the tobacco has in turn killed the Europeans for smoking. That as a sacred object, it actually replenished, it fueled the earth, it fueled people, it did lots and lots of amazing things. But when it began to be cultivated for self-indulgence, and that's the words they're using, and greed, it then, instead of empowering the earth and filling the earth with good stuff, it depleted the earth, it drained the soil, and it became a toxic substance for humanity. And then when it wasn't toxic enough for white man, they added all these stuff to it that made it even worse. So it was really taking something that was beautiful and alive and enriching in so many ways and turning it into a very unpleasant substance. And when you're taking it and giving it back as a offering to the elementals, you are returning that sacredness to the substance. Okay.
Perfect. And then for someone that just came on, do you want to go back to elementals and define elementals?
No, Jennifer will. So you got to pay attention, Jennifer.
No, I will. Well, the elementals are, they can be fairies, or I call them fae sometimes, divas, little people, elementals. Or
Gnomes are part of that too, correct?
I can.
And leprechauns.
Leprechauns.
Pretty much every culture has created an identity and a name for them. And if you go to different countries, everybody has them, but they've just given them different identities. But in life, in truth, if there's such a thing, in basic essence, there is no identity. There is no substance. There is no anything. They can do whatever they want.
I have seen tiny cowboy and Indians in the woods before. just once. It was a shamanic retreat I was on.
Without chemicals.
No chemicals, but the trees were singing and they were swaying, and it felt like we were on something, but yeah.
Well, see that way they were presenting themselves to you. And if you took, it's like a dream interpretation. if you were to take and sit for a few minutes and reconnect with that energy, even though the image is gone, and why did you show yourself to me in this form? There would be a reason they did. Because they're showing you in a form. I've been out on Indian mounds that were unofficial Indian mounds, but the energy is just amazing. And of course, they're all grown over with trees, and identify one tree and have it shake like it's in the middle of a windstorm, and absolutely none of the other trees shake. So, I mean, you can ask for evidence, you can tune in, you can get different confirmations, even being shown cowboys and Indians. But there was a reason they showed you in a cowboy Indian form. I don't know what it is, but if you go back and even reflect on it now, meditate, contemplate, you can still be shown. Or ask yourself, what do cowboys and Indians mean to you? But I can tell you, in their natural form, if we call it that, there's no cowboys and Indians. There's no form. They're just points of consciousness.
And when you said that, and I was there with you during the tree, that I think I was 11 or 12. And that was the first time I really, I was bawling. I saw myself dead, buried underneath it. Anyways, long story short. And then I saw my husband, who was spirit form, and I was anyways, long story short, I was accidentally killed in a bow and arrow, and I was an Indian, and I was pregnant, and he never got over it. So it's just really interesting. And I bring that up because you just talked about how you saw little mini cowboys and Indians. I want people to know too, when you see things, I'll be very honest. Mom talked me through, and I was kind of going through and explaining things, but it for me felt super awkward. It felt super am I making this up? And it's is this crazy? How am I seeing? But at the same time, I know what I'm seeing. It doesn't make sense to this mind that wants to make sense of something. But I remember feeling it's so accurate, but there's also something about it that can feel very almost like you disbelieve in yourself. And so I want to say, for people who are new to seeing things, or want to start seeing things, or ready to start seeing things, that it is okay to feel a little awkward around it. Trust that, oh, I see a fairy. Yes, I see an angel. Yes, I see spirits. And know that there can be some weird feelings around that because it's new. And our brain wants to tell us, no, but in your heart and soul, energetically, what you're seeing is real. It's okay. And I think that's a perfect, also just quick thing. If we do go into the alien stuff, first thing, do you come in the light? Do you come in the love? And they have to answer honestly. It's one of the universal laws and principles. You have to answer honestly. So if they say yes, of course, you'll feel it. If they try to say no, or why would you ask me that? Don't you feel, don't you know, so if they don't answer you directly, know that you can send them away. But it's, a lot of people wow, you see things so easy. No, I fought it for many years, and I didn't necessarily believe what I was even explaining to my mom. So it's taken me, now that I look at it, 25, 30 years to become comfortable in talking about it and owning it, as if yes, this is what I see. This is how I know. So I just felt that was important to add in.
Do you remember when we were at the 501 house and all the trees were dying and stuff? Do you remember that?
And I remember you inviting people over for the diva party. I totally remember that.
Okay, good. It was a welcome home diva party. It wasn't just a diva party. It was a welcome home diva party. Maybe this summer we can have celebrate the diva party. Will you put on a big hat, Josie? Get your big hat ready for our diva party, our garden party.
Has her hand up too.
Oh, okay. Josie does?
Yeah, you see the blue hand on her box or next to her name?
Oh, yeah. Okay, Josie. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, I just wanted to say something. One time when I was smoking, because I'm a non-smoker now, I had put out a cigarette, just dabbed it in a planter that was, it was after the season. I dabbed it in my girlfriend's planter, and I didn't actually leave it in there. I took it and I threw it in the garbage. But it was in a planter that was around her deck, like it had a piece of wood and then it went around it. So like, I don't know, sometime later it was smoking and we thought it was coming from under her deck, but it turned out that that planter started on fire. And the fireman that came said that something in there, you know, it ignited. And I was like, okay, but they said that that is like natural, that could happen. But so I was just remembering that from that cigarette, just, you know, doing that, it ignited and actually started on fire by the time they got there. So we were
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, you know, the wood started on fire, everything. It
Well,
was
I
like,
shouldn't have to say this, but when you're giving tobacco, it should not be burning. It's just plain
Right.
old tobacco, no light. But I
yeah.
have helped lots of people stop smoking through using this technique. So what I tell them, just smoke as usual, but when you light up, go back to the Native American traditions and do it in a sacred way of honoring the Great Spirit, and then to see that smoke be going into heaven. So make with each puff your intentions, your thoughts, your prayers. And they say it's amazing because all of a sudden they don't want to smoke as much. And then what they do smoke is a much different experience. And so in a very short while, they stop smoking naturally. So I'm told that when the white man took the Native American sacred substance, which was tobacco, and turned it into a self-serving experience, it's ended up killing white man. And then Native Americans took the wine, which was the white man's sacred substance, and used it for their own indulgence. And they're all dying of alcoholism. I shouldn't say all, but many. We lose many to alcoholism and to smoke related diseases. And so it's very significant when we take a sacred substance and we discount it when we use it for our own reasons that aren't serving. And yes, elves are another one of the terms for what I'm putting all in a bunch of elementals. But and different cultures will talk about them differently, but to me they're all points of consciousness that take on different forms to serve in different ways. Yes, Stacey Elizabeth.
So I hope I'm saying this right. Isha Therapies, she'd like to know, how do you welcome experience and connection?
There's no one way, whatever's natural for you. For me, it was silliness. I just, okay, my divas have left and my trees are dying, so I want my divas back. I don't even know what they are, but I want my divas back. So for me, it was silliness. But I acknowledged them and I didn't discount them. I just did it with a silly demeanor because I didn't know how to do it any other way. So I'd say any opening is fine, to go out and introduce yourself if you have a favorite tree or a favorite plant or your yard, go out and introduce yourself and say you're just learning about them. And if they want to teach you something about what they do, you're happy to learn and become a spokesperson for them. There's not one way. There's not a wrong way, as long as you do it with respect in your heart. It would be my answer to that.
I love it. And I think we talked about a little bit that in the beginning too. So you might want to rewatch it. You can watch it on Instagram or my YouTube. I'm a big fan of YouTube just because you can pause, play, and do speeds. So I like the speeds. But yeah, intention. So Mom talked about that too. They can also be through thought, because they read your energies and your feelings, so they know. It's like the consciousness through how we communicate in fifth dimension and higher dimensions. So they know whatever you're feeling and thinking. So a lot of that is intentions.
That's we are connected to all things through this vibration, through this divine consciousness. And so as we begin to activate those channels, we have it. it's going to happen anyway. I was told a long time ago, you might as well get your thoughts in order because everybody's going to know what they are. And that's becoming a real reality now with the potential thought police and so on and so forth. But, just know that every thought you think and every word you speak, they're going to hear and they're going to respond to it. And don't expect them to do circus tricks for you the first time you go out and talk to them. But, again, it's building a relationship. Just telling them what a nice job they're doing with the plants and helping. Carver, the guy, I think it was Carver, that did the experiments with cactuses, and he just went out and talked to the cactuses, and he in his laboratory, and told them how nice they were, and that they were in a world now that they weren't going to get hurt, and that he would take care of them, and they really didn't need their little prongs, and all his cactuses dropped their prongs, so the plants have a consciousness, the divas have a consciousness, and you're connected to it. You just don't use those channels. I have a telephone that's connected to LD. I don't use it. I have never called her, but my phone has the capability of connecting with everybody, but I don't necessarily connect with everybody. And that's sort of what our consciousness, our abilities far exceed what we're using. But if you want to use more of them, just go do it. Act as if.
So you just talked about cactus. I have a cactus, if you remember, I have 2 cacti. The one just kind of turned black, and so I took it out, and now the second one, the real big one, is turning dark, and I think it was overwatered.
Yeah, that'll do it real big.
So is there anything that I can do to help?
Well, I don't know how far gone they are, but I first would start by apologizing. And if they've been outside in your rain, get them out of that environment that's given them too much water, and ask them, tell the plants, do whatever you need to do to, if you have soggy soil, get rid of the soil and put in a drier, sandier soil so they're not sitting in the moisture, but, just common sense.
Well, I just did that. I took it outside, so it's got sun now, and then dug out half of the wetness to just air it out and let the sun dry it out. But that's why you just typed cactus. And I wanted to ask earlier, and I was like, but you said it. I was like, I need to ask.
Yeah, well, taking them outside is a way of starting it. But if they're still sitting in wet soil, you want to change the wet soil.
Okay. I'm really good with plants. It's just I don't know cactuses.
Then don't own cactuses. And get information from the divas about how to do it, and let them know. And I poke a few crystals in there, and you can put strings in there that will take the moisture out.
Oh, there was someone else that asked. Esme asked about what kind of crystals, so she can go out and buy some. She got on a little late, so I don't know.
There's no wrong kind. Again, there's no wrong kind. Sand is crystalline often. So if I've got, I love my Egypt sand. And so I sprinkle the Egypt sand as crystals. And then, again, I don't usually give my best crystals to them, but, got some that are a little chewed up, then they go. And so, it can be any kind, and it doesn't have to be a quartz crystal. It can be little gemstones of different kinds. It can be anything, rice, tobacco, beans, any of those things. And you might consider putting a little rice in your cactus to absorb some of that moisture as well. But, it's, again, the intention more so than the object. What are you going to give them to honor their presence? It's not about going out and buying beautiful crystals. There are some schools of thought, though, that think that if you bury a crystal in each corner of your yard, you create and set the intention to create a dome of protection around your property. That can be very powerful. But again,
I did that with selenite, because selenite you can get some nice big chunks and it's pretty reasonable. And I love selenite. So I did that around my room and as well as my yard. Although someone did steal one of my crystals, but I just energetically, she's still protecting.
Well, yeah. I was blessed to be able to go out to Crystal Mountain, the Crystal Mountain Range in Egypt, and I have lots and lots of Egypt crystals, which are very different than
Like
the quartz crystal.
these are from Crystal Mountain, and they have a very different energy as well. And I'm waiting to get the pieces, but I'm going to be making earrings from them. But they're very unique.
Yeah, they're not like the quartz crystals from
And they
Hot Springs at all.
Yeah, even physically they feel very different. Yeah. And speaking, Esme also asked about my bracelets. So I'm wearing a lot of the ones that I make. So for example, this is one of them, but it's gold hematite. I have tiger's eye. I have all kinds of different stones. Rhodolite. Anyways, so I have all kinds.
And she sells them. So if you would like one, I'm sure you can just text her. She'd be happy to.
Yes, she asked me which ones, and most of them are 22. Almost all of them are 22. If I do a Larimar, it's a lot more expensive just because the beads are very expensive. And then I have a mini pink tourmaline, but I usually do. Huh?
So if you have a bead of any of those things, I'm sure the divas would love it.
Oh, yeah.
Are you on Etsy?
No,
She's just started doing it.
Actually, our friend Josie's wearing our labradorite. It's a special silver faceted. Do you have it on, Josie?
No, I don't. I like to save it for special occasions.
I wear mine every day, and I've been wearing bracelets for probably about at least 10, 15 years. And I found I had to start fixing them. And so I just learned and started watching. And then I used to make crystal earrings at 15 when we would go crystal mining in Arkansas. So I've been making crystal earrings since, I guess, no, it's probably 12 the first time we went. So I love making jewelry. It's fun. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stacy. We're going back to the elementals. So Jennifer, do you have more questions or are you done?
I do have another question, but I was going to share that fairies sometimes, I've seen it before, leave a ring of flowers. So if you see a ring of flowers.
Circles of any kind. It can be a circle of mushrooms, a worn place and things. When you're seeing circles, they're often called fairy rings. And so the flowers or any kind of plant that's in a circle, or I've seen where the ground is dampened down in circles. So there's lots of things, but there is a lot of truth to the fairy rings.
They were dancing there the night before.
Okay.
And then when you're walking through the woods and you see a rotted out tree, and it kind of has looks more like a little mountain, those are gnome houses. So you can find some gnome houses in the woods. And if you don't have tobacco, you can pull a piece of hair out and offer it. I know to plants, so I'm not sure about the fairies. But if you want a flower and you don't have tobacco or cornmeal on you, you could, give a piece of your hair. Yes. All right. So
I've never heard of the hair. That's new information. But as I age, I have less hair than I used to, so I'm not giving anybody anything. I'm keeping what I got. But thanks for the suggestion.
Yes. So
and be careful with cornmeal, because that actually is toxic to many of the creatures. If you have anthills that you aren't fond of and you want to get rid of, sprinkling cornmeal will cause them to die. So beware that if you're sprinkling cornmeal, that it's a very specific and very limited.
Like a pin. So do they have any messages for humanity at this time?
Okay, first of all, before we go to that one, anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Okay, Josie?
Okay, so I don't have plants that live each year to year. I just plant them, have to replant every year. So did the fairies come in and take care of them, and then I have to say goodbye to the fairies as I say goodbye to the plants?
Well, you can, but it isn't necessary because they don't die. They don't quit. They just, their job's done. So they're going on a little break. But they're still there tending the soil. You know,
Okay.
the plant is not there. They do their best work with plants that are growing and
Right.
getting more, like, for instance, that's the first time I've ever heard him talk about azaleas, but it was like very clear. I could see the azalea bush. They like azaleas. So plants
I
that
do have a rose
accumulate,
bush.
yeah, so they would be there. But again, you have so many. And then the other thing that I was told back in the day is leave a part of your yard unhampered, you know, so that there's no weeding, there's no cutting, there's no trimming. It's just a little bit of nature. You can plant your wildflowers in that area for the butterflies and for the bees and stuff. And then if you're going to do yard work, like mow the lawn or that kind of stuff, warn them, you know, tomorrow the lawn is going to be cut. So I want you to protect yourself and do what you need to do. But they like advance notices when you're going to trim the bushes or trim the yard.
Okay, great. That's all I got.
Okay, I'm going to end with the message to humanity. So we're not going to do that till the last one. Anybody else have any questions?
That's a good idea. So let's see if there's anybody else has questions. Mom loves questions, so feel free to write them in. I know there's a little bit of a delay. And again, we're talking about fairies and foes and divas and gnomes and all kinds of fun little creatures. Did Jen have any other questions besides that one?
Well, we're going to go see.
I'm gonna get a simpler one would be, I know you said the Alzarias, but are there different flowers that we could plant to attract them more, or are there favorites?
The little Heather Harder would have said no, but as I'm saying that, all those flowers that have droopy little things, I can't even think of what the names are, but they look like little fairies dancing and things, but they hang down. It's like well, Jack in the Box is one, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Forget-me-nots.
Well, that's fine, but that's still not the one I'm thinking of. But any of those plants that have little hang down blossoms seem to be real fun, because that's the image that jumped into my head. It's one that Mom used to like, and I don't remember what it is, but she would always get a big pot of them in the spring and hang up, and then they're
called fuchsia.
Bleeding hearts are like one of those. What would you say?
They're called fuchsia, and they're usually purple
Fuchsia.
and pink, or they have little pink and things, but they definitely drop down and have the flower.
Yeah, fuchsias are what I'm talking about. But like forget-me-nots, those things that have drop down blossoms seem to be their favorite. But there'll be ones assigned to everything. So everything green and growing has these energetic beings. And again, whether you call them fairies or whatever, you can ask them what they prefer to be called, because the gnomes, the elves, the leprechauns, we should start talking about leprechauns and let us show us the pots of gold. All of those things are part of the same family, if there's such a thing, a family in points of consciousness.
So what about, I think I put in there, what about elves? Is elves considered?
Elves are part of that same group. And we think of them as little, but they can be full sized. I mean, it's again, we've assigned them a lot of images because it makes sense to us, but it doesn't mean that it's what they are.
What about the moss? How can we always connect them with moss?
Well, first of all, because a lot of the fairy stories come from Ireland and the British continent, which is very, very moist. If you've ever spent much time in Britain, there's always, the heavy dew, heavy moisture, misty rain, the red cheeks, and everything is lush green. And that lush green is heavy density elemental energy. The desert has elementals, but we don't think of it because it's not green. The green just sort of carries that image more. But when you have that moss around a heavy, moist place, it's it just speaks of them more, but it doesn't mean they're there more.
And then what about the lightning bugs that have the evanescent glow that in the Midwest that they fly and they literally light up the beautifulness? They're magical. Bioluminescence.
And what about it?
Are they related to the fairy world?
No, they're called an insect. Insect
They're-
is a whole different world.
But they're so special.
They're part of the hierarchy of animals and things, but
Oh.
well, I didn't say they're not special. They're just not part of the elementals. Elementals are the plants.
Yeah, them and the dragonflies, right? There's something.
Yes. What's special? Can you say what's special about a dragonfly?
One topic per night.
Wow.
We'll do insects another
You
time.
are limiting yourself, Mother. You are the all everything. We all are. There's no limits.
Well, because
So then,
reminded
so then answer your own question.
reminded of fairies when we see them, and the same with the hummingbirds. They say the way they levitate and they're multi-dimensional. They can go in and out. So they just remind me of each other.
Well, right now, a lot of people are vibrations getting higher and they're seeing things peripheral. So they're seeing a lot of these creatures and beings, and you can call them in and they can be very, very real. So expect to see more elementals if you're open to it, and you'll catch them in the peripheral much faster and much easier. And if you just, say, thank you, I'm glad you're here, kind of thing, acknowledge them, it will assist them in showing them, feeling comfortable to show themselves to you at another point in time. But yeah, dragonflies to me are very, very special.
Mm.
I have, and if you leave a part of your yard raw, untampered with, you'll see a lot of those plants and animals and stuff come in. It's, they sort of all flock together.
That's one of the special things I think about my yard is I have hummingbirds every day. I have birds that sing to me every morning. Like I remember when I first moved here, I was like annoyed because like, why are the birds singing all the time? And then I was like, Stacy, did you just hear your own thoughts? Because I've been living in LA and you don't usually hear them. And then I was like, oh my gosh, they're singing. Like, what am I thinking? Like, I love it. And now people can hear it when you're on the phone and it's just like, I forget about it, but it's like nature singing to you and it's beautiful. And dragonflies all the time, butterflies all the time. Like, I love it. And I have a lot of bees and I have a lot of natural growing volunteer plants from composting. So I do recommend composting. Do the fairies, the elementals like composting?
I don't think they have strong opinions.
Okay.
I think your consciousness should like composting because you're giving back to the soil. So it's another way of honoring them.
Mike Tower says, if you can catch a fairy by the toe, would you let him go?
Now, what about mermaids? Do you consider them elementals or are they on their own?
No, they're a whole different category because they are part of the water creatures, the water nymphs and all of those. So they're, but yes, they do exist. Yes, we have so much of this planet that we have no clue about. We're so self-centered, egocentric, that we don't explore outside ourselves. And if we do, it's usually to conquer and destroy. So we're better off not exploring. I love that Egypt has the rule that if they find some new discovery, they are only allowed to explore 10% of it because they say they don't know enough not to destroy or damage things. So they only just do a little bit of exploration and they save the rest for generations to come when they actually know more and have more advanced tools and techniques and stuff. And I think that's a very wise position to take. Because, look at us looking for Bigfoot. We just want to kill him so we can have a Bigfoot carcass. It's like, excuse me, this is really not a good position to take, but it's where unfortunately humanity is. And that's one of the reasons we keep sending love to humanity and helping them see there's a whole nother way. And if we can get enough scientists and doctors and stuff who are heart-centered, then we begin to approach life and our bodies and the world around us from a very heart-centered place. Okay, any other questions before we go in and find out what our diva messages for?
My only other one was, how can we help the earth?
Well, with the earth, it's easy. Just love it. Literally appreciate, and appreciating the diva is part of that. The earth is like our body. It has every ability to restable, to reheal, to create its own state of homeostasis. It's inward built. The same thing with the earth. If we just stop destroying it, it can fix itself. But we have to stop the craziness of the fracking, and then using the oils and our face creates oil. That's a very important role for our bodies. Well, if you can imagine that every time there was a drop of oil on our face, we scraped it off and we got rid of it to use as some other thing, how eventually we would really scar our face and hurt our bodies. That's what we're doing to Earth. We do not understand or appreciate that it's a living creature, that it's a conscious creature, and that when you drain up its oils, when we pollute its waters, when we create the trash in the ocean, that we are making a difference in the health of that being. We've got to stop those behaviors. I'm told that pollution is not a big deal, that we can fix that easy. It's the hearts of humanity that has to be healed. That pollution, all these plastics and stuff, are just artificially bound natural elements, and that when we get our hearts right, that there'll be introduced an enzyme that goes in here and separates these natural elements, so they just go back to inert processes, and that all the pollution will take care of itself. But we have to get right first, so we stop doing the things that are counterproductive, including vibratorily, which is hate and war and all those things, and allowing greed to make decisions on what's good for the planet. Earth can take care of healing herself. We just have to stop hurting her. And when we do that, it'll all be itself. This whole thing we're on now, this whole ride, we call it the COVID ride, is all designed to get people to recognize how destructive much of our behavior is. And right now, we will let the power mongers, the technology industry, determine so much. When there's not a massive outcry at Bill Gates suggesting that they're going to put things in the atmosphere to turn down the sun. And we didn't see massive outcries against it. We just said, oh, Bill Gates is going to dim the sun. What the hell consequences is that going to be? Huge. And yet nobody is doing anything. That's the kind of stupidity that we have to stop. And then once we do that, then everything else can be taken care of. And as soon as we generate enough love on this planet, which is 1/3 of our meetings together, those kinds of answers will be given to us. We'll heal the planet. We'll move back into our Garden of Eden, our planet that is meant to be. And if you can imagine, if all we had was happy little satisfied elementals who are taking care of all these plants because they're so loved, I mean, how beautiful. And you can walk someplace and you can feel when the elementals are happy. With Stacy, I spent a month tromping the woods out in California, helping Stacy look for her lost dog. And it was paths and walks and parks that I had never been into. When I go out to visit Stacy, I don't usually do 7-8 mile walks a day, but we walked through some of the most incredible gorgeous land in the Santa Monica Mountains and Boy Scout camps. And it was absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. And that's the way the earth is meant to be. Beautiful and unique and gorgeous. And just being in that was transformative.
We have a question that what can you tell us about dream catchers?
I don't know what dream catchers are hoops and threads and twines and stuff, and they're designed to catch dreams, help you hold on to them. But you could make them for anything because you set your intention in them. If you make this hoop with thread and you call it a dream catcher, you're designing something to help you catch and hold on to your dream time experiences. But you can set it for being a love catcher or a place to hold on to love in your life and make you more aware. So it's the intention you put into it more so than the power or the shape of it or the process of making it. But again, Native Americans use them a lot, and I have probably half a dozen or so around in different places. But their intention, you know, again, we add see over my head. Can you see my lovely copper pyramid? That's to amplify the energy that I'm putting out. Your intentions will make it so. That's the power of us. We are so amazingly magnificent. Any other questions from anybody? And then we'll go get our final question from the divas. And I call them divas just because that's how I got to know them. It was through the Native American traditions. But if I were in Ireland, I'd be talking about the fairies and elves and gnomes and whatnot. If you look at every culture has them. They just call them different things and assign them different personalities and roles. And for me, the divas don't have a form. They're just little points of consciousness, but they are amazing. And you can start immediately just honoring the divas of your houseplants and honoring the divas of your outside plants and whatnot. Going once, going twice. Okay, so we want to end for Jennifer with what are the divas' message for mankind? Is that what you were asking? What was the
Yes.
Okay. Immediately, he looked sort of like a leprechaunish kind of character. I mean, with the beard and the old appearance and the top hat. I mean, he came with that appearance, and he was sort of a salty, irritating kind of personality. And he said, without apologies, "Stop cutting down the damn trees." That what I'm being shown is that trees are very significant to the planet, much more than what we acknowledge, and they're not valued, they're not appreciated. I love, there's a town in California, and I think it's Ojai, that's how you pronounce it, where they literally built the street around the tree, and the tree goes around it. You know what I'm talking about, Stacy? There's a tree in the center of the road, and so rather than cut the tree down, they just went around the tree in both directions. And I love that because it showed they valued and they appreciated that tree. And I think that's what we have to do, is just really begin to become aware that what a massive loss it is every time we cut down a tree. And even, I mean, they're showing me now the tremendous waste of trees, that even like the Christmas trees that we use for celebrations, and those are living consciousness that we're taking down for a few weeks of enjoyment, but what a terrible cost to the planet. That trees are much more significant, and we need to plant rather than destroy trees in huge amounts. If you want to be kind to the divas and help the earth, plant a tree. And I would invite everyone to do it within a month. And if you plant one a month, that's okay too, but plant trees, that it will shift the planet tremendously. And if you could see this guy, he's just curmudgeon-y, stop cutting down the trees. Interesting. And if you've got wood in your house, if you leave the wood unfinished, no polyurethane, no shellac, no paint, but leave the wood unfinished, that tree will continue to filter and clean the earth. So trees continue to serve humanity as long as you don't seal them. Once you seal them, they can't do their job any longer. But that's the biggest thing that we can do as humanity, start a crusade to plant more trees. Yes, pixies and brownies and stuff are also names for the elementals. And I've got foxgloves and coneflowers. But if you want to do something for your little divas in your yard, plant something that's got those hang down flowers, because they apparently like those really well. It's been a joy.
Real quick, before we do that, there's some conversations going on, so I just want to address it real quick on Instagram. I blocked our little friend Mike, but because he's bringing up a lot of things, he's triggering a lot of people. And just a reminder that sometimes when you are light, the dark will be attracted to that. And it can be a lesson if it's affecting you emotionally, but usually they need love, and then you can just cut your boundaries and be clear. But sometimes that's the gift of the light, is they're usually like a moth. They're attracted to the lightness, but it's up to you if you keep your light or if you're going to dim out and meet them. So it's about rising above those energies and staying in your zone and knowing that you control your thoughts and things. And it's taken me a very long time to understand that and not be affected, because energetically I get empath. It's been a very long lesson, but I think I'm finally moving into that much better. So we can just bless them, love them, and know that they're usually just needing a little extra love and extra attention, and they haven't necessarily been shown that. So I hope that all of you, all of our light workers, can stay.
Well, I also say, stay in the love and light and from your heart, but follow your heart. Again, we don't accept anything that doesn't respect us. We don't have to do anything that is not part of the light. Is just whatever you feel right. Follow your heart. It's very important. All right, back to the fairies and the pixies and the brownies and the divas and the leprechauns and all those little people that we've been talking about. Anything with that we want to wrap up? Okay, then Jennifer, I'll let you say your closing words.
Does Alicia want to say anything? Al?
No, I'm just listening. It's really not a new subject for me, but I haven't thought about all that in a long time. It's probably been about 5 years. I used to build fairy gardens with my grandkids.
Yeah, no, this is a new topic for me, so I was just taking it in. Thank you.
Well, again, take a portion of your yard and begin to talk to the fairies and the divas and stuff, and watch the difference in your rental properties and your real estate investments. Giving gifts to the divas will make a huge difference in the yard.
Yeah, I always sit back in the morning and go out there and try to be one with my yard. So absolutely.
I was told a few months ago to make sure that I go outside and sit and really be in the yard for at least 20 minutes a day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Amazingly, that's very difficult for me, because it's not part of my normal routine, so I have to consciously do it. But it makes a huge difference to be in that energy, and then it forces you to connect with that elemental energy, which you get busy, you know. So
And Elle also added pixies or brownies or additional names.
I know I said that.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Just kidding.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, it's been a joy talking. And then again, Jennifer, would you like to close it up, and then I'll wrap it up, and then we'll all go home.
Sure. We'd all like to thank the fairies and fays and all the elementals for being here with us tonight and for adding magic into our lives and for taking care of our planet. We thank you and we enjoy you and we welcome you.
And we invite you to speak to us. We don't really know the fairy language, so talk loud and clear so that we can get the messages, but we are here to welcome our cooperation with this whole other world.
Mm-hmm. Here, here.
Okay. All right. Well, our next official gathering will be Sunday when we do our politics and spirituality. The Zoom number for that is 831-755-38434. And we have our little light work, and then we do conversation about the politics and lots of interesting things going on with that. And then we're back here Thursday, every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central. We're on the same Zoom call link, and the same thing with Sundays. It's always the same one. And then starting on the 18th of April, we're doing live gatherings at my home, 2 p.m. In Crown Point, Indiana, if you happen to be near there or know someone who might be wanting to join us. And it's designed to really use the light and love to transform the planet. So please consider joining us if you're near, and we'll connect the next time we connect. And if you want to continue to play with the light, feel free to go to Stacy's YouTube channel, and you'll see all the recordings, and you can listen to the beginning. And each week we do a slightly different version of our light work, and the same thing with our Sunday gatherings. And then I'm available for private sessions should you want them, or coaching, or whatever you may find helpful. And we will see you next week or whenever.
Yes.
I
And
love you all.
just final post, just saying again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And it's always like my little soul family every Thursday. It's so great. And again, you are always, I love seeing you guys on Instagram, and it's so lovely to see you, but you are always welcome to join us live on Zoom as well. So thank you for holding the light, being the light, and the love that you are. And our destiny together is to share in that space and to live in that space. So please, if you have questions, you can email at Heather@HeatherHarder, or send them to me, and we can always do that. But so much love and light to all of you. So I just want to say thank you.
And because we're talking about this other kinds of information tonight, other things may come up. We will answer questions next week about the divas and angels and elementals and whatnot. If something comes up that you want to go, what about this? What about that? So you can bring those questions next time. And that's, Jennifer, that was meant for you, because I'm sure your mind's going to be thinking about a lot of those things. So until then, we'll see you. Have a wonderful week. Lots of light and love. Be the greatness of who you are.
Oh.
Oh.
That was so much fun.